Witamy ze wszystkich stanów kina. Pokazy galowe rozchodzą się jak świeże bułeczki, altmaniarze pokazują swoją dominację, a w tym całym zamieszaniu my postanowiliśmy pokazać Wam kilka prawdziwych indyków. Nie mówimy tutaj oczywiście o ptakach, a o pozycjach niezależnych. Wybraliśmy kilka tytułów, które są naszym zdaniem godne Waszej uwagi. Postaramy się Wam je przybliżyć, a później porozmawiać z ich twórcami. Jest coś surrealistycznego w scenie, której podczas bożonarodzeniowego spotkania pomocnik Mikołaja rozdaje prezenty ubrany jedynie w czapkę. Jego nagość nie robi na nikim wrażenia. Przynajmniej nie w oddalonym od cywilizacji ośrodku dla turystów na Florydzie.
So the film is about a nudist resort, and we thought it would be very interesting because Hollywood is selling us the perfect body. And we all are wearing clothing because we're covering our bodies. Many of us feel ashamed of our bodies because we're seeing imagery on television of perfect people, whatever that is. So we wanted to make a film where we saw the real body, and we saw people who had learned to accept who they are, their physical body, people who had learned to not feel shame about the way they look.
Okay, so first, your idea, it isn't to show that this unique society of naked people in the naked city, but to show us that our body is perfect, and to take the hatred for showing perfect Hollywood body, yes?
Yes, when we start a film, we don't know what it's going to be about. We have some ideas. So the idea when you start a film is we're going to learn from people who have the courage to be naked in a community setting, which is very difficult. And other than that, we don't know what's going to happen. So we film for this film for 5 months, and we're learning the whole time, learning about ourselves and learning about the people we're working with.
Have you heard about Polish chałupa? It's beach for nudists and all of this zone.
This Polish naked beach sounds like heaven. Should we go, all of us, today? So what I do in Poland is I go to sanitarium, and you go into the sauna, and the sauna master dances around the heat. You're in a towel. You leave the sauna, you take a shower, and you jump into the cold water, and then you go get a beer, and you do it again. But it's a place where Polish people can be naked, because when you leave the sauna, you shower naked, and you get into the cold pool naked.
So, on the end, I will show you the song, Chałupy Welcome Through,
Yeah.
on the wish of Łukasz, and I wanna show this clip. Yeah.
Przypowieść o wędrówce dwóch przyjaciół przez dziki zachód, w której western splata się z science fiction i dokumentem, a kino fabularne z animacją.
You know, I think on the surface it's a western about two sort of down and out cowboys trying to prove each other wrong on whether a musician is alive or dead. That would be the story. But the story, while important, it's really also there to create this world. And the film is about multi-worlds theory, and the film is about the way we use art to define memories and ultimately use that art to define history in the world.
You have a background in physics, like actual degree in science. So this is like a dual question because one, how does that background influence you, and how did it come like from that to making movies? And the second part of the question is, as a physicist, what is your stance on current sci-fi? Like, are you excited about how multiverse is being portrayed in today's movies, or are you against it?
Well, yeah. So I think really there's different types of science. So there's the science that lands in more of an engineering world. There are certain things you need to do to make sure the plane that I fly back, to the States in on Saturday doesn't crash. And I want those scientists to really think about quote-unquote right answers. But the part of science that I studied and I got really excited about was more theoretical. So I love, Hugh Everett and Wheeler and Feynman and Schrodinger and all of these scientists that eventually their ideas get applied to making things. But for the most part, they're talking about ideas more than actual experiments in most cases. And that's not that different, I think, from making films or making art, that a lot of art is exploring ideas. And the part of science that attracts me is that idea that we don't know that much. And as you start to scratch the surface and learn new things, you realize how much of what you thought you knew was wrong. I think art does that all the time, that as artists we evolve and we look at what we did a few years ago and you go, wait a minute, I was wrong about that, or this could be different, and we try to rebuild things. So intellectually, I don't think the jump from science to art is that crazy. And I really kind of started down that path of science and realized the things I was most interested in meant about all I could do was become a professor and teach, and I didn't want to do that. So I changed gears and I went into film, and now I'm a professor that teaches film. So I think there's also a strange way in which your own life, the way we are doesn't change that much. We come back to it. We change specifics, but I'm still the same Jeff that was moving down one path towards teaching, and I got myself there. So that's kind of how I got from one place to the other. To the second part of the question about science fiction, I love it. I mean, I enjoy science fiction, I enjoy science fantasy, and sometimes I use the term science fantasy because a lot of multi-world films, I like to watch them, but they're science fantasy. They're just using science to say, well, what if we could have a world that just has 10 different characters? What if we could just not have rules? So you throw in sci-fi so you don't have rules. And to some degree, a Star Wars universe is that. I want to have spaceships flying around and, laser swords, lightsabers, I know what they're called, but I'll just call them laser swords for right now. I love that stuff too, but it's not very scientific. So when I make my own films, when I made my first feature Mars, when I made this film, I do like, as a filmmaker, to have to answer at least how the science works in these films. So I think I enjoy that even more, but it is all fun. But I would say a lot of science fiction that we get when we just go to the regular theaters is more science fantasy, which again, I enjoy, but every once in a while it's nice to have something that's a little more like The Twilight Zone. And I think that my version of sci-fi is more like that, where it's ideas that you can trace back and say, I've just changed one thing about the world as we currently understand it. And if I change that, all these other things make sense.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time. So I could talk to you, and I wish maybe we grab a couple of beers afterwards. But as like the end of interview, I would like to present you with an opportunity to really live out your fantasy of being cowboy. I brought pistols. And we will duel. Yeah, it's not a high noon situation, but still, my friend will start music, and he will stop it at a random moment.
I was thinking about it.
Pita Ousa rozpoczyna się od sceny miłosnej, papierosa i nocnej opowieści. Granica między tym, co realne,
Udało mi się obejrzeć 20 filmów na festiwalu.
i tym, co nierzeczywiste, a mi na wszystko wklikać.
Wow!
Szybko się w niej zaciera.
Jessica is a supernatural, dark comedy about a woman with a stalker that she can't get rid of because he's a ghost.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, but okay, this thing, what would you tell? What you tell? Is this some horror or thriller, or this is more teen drama mixed with some horror action?
The thing that excites me about this movie, that I feel like will excite anyone else as well, is the way in which it mixes all these different genres in unexpected ways. That in a way it's not really that scary, it's not really that funny, but because it's mixing these things together and kind of balancing between the lines, it arrives in maybe some new unexpected place that the audience did not expect to be taken.
Which directors inspired you?
Definitely think about Kubrick and Miyazaki a lot. Also love Ozu for his kind of simplicity, and I don't really think of myself as a cinephile. For a while, I would often say my favorite movie is Wayne's World, which is this like American comedy from the 90s. But I'm often inspired by kind of a smaller, simpler movie that has some really smart ideas, some good intentions and thought behind it, that is executed, created in a way that feels like I could have done it. That we could have done it. It's not these big, grandiose Hollywood movies that who knows how those get made. These things that feel smaller that somebody actually, that I could do. To make them requires capturing lightning in a bottle, still requires conjuring magic. And that's the trick of making something really simple that also is complex. But that challenge also is really exciting to me. So it's often those small, the Jim Jarmusch's of the world, the Wim Wenders, these movies that are so small and yet just feel like a miracle, a gift.
Like Tim Burton, except Jarmusch and Miyazaki. You like him?
We watched Beetlejuice during the shoot of Jessica. Yes. And I don't, and you haven't seen Jessica yet?
No, I haven't.
When you eventually do, the ghost makeup is very much, I would say, inspired by Beetlejuice.
Yo, okay, so last question. You have some plan for the next movie? Of course, if you can tell us some mystery.
I have already made the next movie. Hopefully I'll come back to American Film Festival next year to share it as well. Yes. We filmed it in Texas earlier this year. It stars Will Madden, who's in Jessica. It stars Stephanie Hunt, who is in Youngstown. It's a romantic comedy. Oh. And
mixing genres.
Mixing genres again.